tragic details about the 1,000-pound sisters. Hello viewers, welcome back to my channel. For 1000 lb sister latest news update, please subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon. There are moments in life that defy explanation, moments where pain, love, resilience, and despair collide so violently that no script could ever capture their rawness. Such is the story of Tammy Slaton and Amy Slaton Holloway, the sisters at the center of TLC's reality series, 1,000-Pound Sisters. What began as a voyeuristic glimpse into extreme obesity and weight loss became something far deeper, a haunting chronicle of trauma, systemic neglect, familial dysfunction, and the quiet, unrelenting battle for survival. Behind the dramatic camera angles, emotional outbursts, and surgical milestones lies a tragedy woven from decades of silence, shame, and suffering. The world first met Tammy and Amy through the lens of sensationalism. At the time of the show's debut in 2020, Tammy weighed over 700 pounds, Amy hovered near 600. Together, they were known as the 1,000-Pound Sisters, a label that reduced two human beings to a grotesque statistic. But behind the headlines and the clickbait titles lay stories that no one dared to tell, not until the cameras rolled, and even then, only fragments emerged between tears and shouting matches. Tammy Slaton was born on April 28, 1985, in rural Kentucky, the youngest of 4 children. Her childhood was marked not by laughter or birthday parties, but by isolation and abuse. In interviews, she has described growing up in a home where food was the only source of comfort and the only thing consistently available. Her mother, who struggled with mental illness and substance abuse, often left the children to fend for themselves. Meals were inconsistent, but when food was present, it was cheap, processed, and abundant: fried chicken, boxed macaroni and cheese, soda, candy bars. Food became a coping mechanism, a way to fill the void left by emotional neglect. By age 12, Tammy weighed nearly 300 pounds. She was already being called fat by classmates, teachers, even relatives. One memory she recounts with chilling clarity is when her grandmother told her, "You'll never be loved like that. You're too big." That sentence, spoken in casual cruelty, echoed through every decision Tammy made for the next 3 decades. She stopped trying to fit in. She stopped hoping. She ate to numb the pain. Amy, born in 1977, was 5 years older. Their relationship was complicated, part protector, part rival, part mirror. Amy also endured abuse, though differently. While Tammy was emotionally starved, Amy was physically punished. In one heartbreaking moment captured on camera, Amy recalls being locked in a closet for hours as punishment for minor infractions. She remembers the smell of mildew, the darkness, the fear. She would cry herself to sleep, wondering why God didn't hear her. Their father, a quiet man who worked long hours, was largely absent, not because he didn't care, but because he didn't know how to fix what was broken. He later admitted in an interview that he thought his wife's behavior was just how she was. He didn't intervene. He didn't seek help. And so, the cycle continued. By the time they reached adulthood, both women were trapped not just by their weight, but by the invisible chains of trauma. Tammy had multiple failed relationships, each ending in rejection rooted in her size. She once dated a man who promised to marry her if she lost weight. She lost 200 pounds only for him to leave her anyway. "He said I still wasn't good enough," she whispered during a therapy session on the show. I believed him. Amy, meanwhile, became a single mother at 18. Her son, Tyler, was born weighing over 10 pounds, a fact doctors attributed to her own massive insulin resistance and metabolic damage. Raising a child while battling her own health issues was overwhelming. She often relied on fast food because it was easy, affordable, and familiar. She couldn't walk more than a few steps without needing to rest. She couldn't pick up Tyler without assistance. Yet, she never gave up on him. She taught him to read before kindergarten. She saved every dollar to buy him shoes that fit. She kissed his forehead every night, whispering, "You're perfect, but perfection didn't matter when your body betrayed you." In 2016, Amy suffered a stroke. It was a wake-up call, quiet, terrifying, and utterly isolating. She survived, but the neurological damage left her partially paralyzed on one side. She needed a walker, then a wheelchair. Doctors warned her. If she didn't lose weight, she wouldn't live to see 40. She was 39 at the time. Tammy, meanwhile, was deteriorating faster. She developed type 2 diabetes, hypertension, sleep apnea, and severe joint degeneration. Her knees were worn down to bone. She couldn't stand for more than 10 minutes without collapsing. Her heart was struggling. She had been hospitalized multiple times for fluid buildup in her lungs and legs. Her doctor told her she had maybe 2 years left if she didn't change, and yet, neither sister had access to proper care. Insurance denied bariatric surgery repeatedly. They were labeled non-compliant because they hadn't lost weight through diet and exercise alone. But how do you diet when your body screams for sugar because your brain is chemically addicted? How do you exercise when your joints ache like they're on fire? How do you follow a meal plan when you've never learned what real nutrition is? The turning point came in 2018 after a particularly harrowing incident. Tammy attempted to drive to the grocery store but passed out behind the wheel. Her car veered off the road and crashed into a ditch. She woke up in the hospital with a broken rib and a shattered windshield. No one else was hurt, but the message was clear. This wasn't just about weight anymore. This was about mortality. That's when the idea of 1,000-pound sisters was born. A production company approached them with a proposal: document their journey toward weight loss, bariatric surgery, and rehabilitation. They agreed not for fame, not for money, but because they had nothing left to lose. What followed was not a fairy tale. It was a brutal, unedited descent into the abyss of self-loathing, medical bureaucracy, and psychological unraveling. The surgeries themselves were only the beginning. Tammy underwent gastric bypass in early 2020. The procedure went well, but recovery was hellish. She couldn't keep food down. She vomited constantly. Her skin hung in folds like wet paper. She developed infections. She was bedridden for weeks. And worst of all, she felt alone. Her family, once her only support system, now seemed distant, watching from afar as if she were a spectacle rather than a person. Amy, who underwent gastric sleeve surgery months later, faced complications too. She developed a leak in her stomach lining, requiring emergency surgery. For days, she lay in ICU, hooked to machines, unable to speak. Her son, now a teenager, sat beside her holding her hand, crying silently. "I don't want to lose you," he whispered. She didn't answer. She was too weak, too scared. Even after the physical healing, the emotional wounds festered. One of the most devastating episodes of the series occurred when Tammy, finally losing weight, returned to her childhood home to confront her mother. What followed was not reconciliation, it was devastation. Her mother, frail and bitter, looked at her daughter's new face and said, "You look like a stranger. Not, 'I'm proud of you.' Not, 'I'm sorry.' Just, 'You look like a stranger.'" Tammy broke down. She sobbed uncontrollably for 20 minutes straight. The camera lingered. No music swelled. No voiceover softened the blow. Just the sound of a woman realizing that the person who was supposed to love her unconditionally had never seen her, not the real her, not the girl hiding inside the body, not the soul begging to be acknowledged. Amy, too, confronted her past. In a rare moment of vulnerability, she revealed that she had been sexually abused by a cousin during her teenage years. She never told anyone, not her parents, not her siblings, not even her husband. She carried it alone for 30 years. "I thought if I stayed quiet, maybe it wasn't real," she said, staring at the floor. "Maybe if I didn't say it, I could pretend I wasn't broken." The revelation sent shockwaves through the show's audience. Viewers flooded social media with messages of support. But behind the scenes, the production team reportedly struggled with whether to air it. Was it exploitative? Was it necessary in the end? They did. Because Amy insisted. "If I don't say it now," she told the producer, "I'll die saying it." And that's the tragedy beneath the tragedy. These women didn't need to be famous. They didn't need to be on TV. They needed someone to listen. The show's success brought attention, yes, but also scrutiny. Critics accused TLC of exploiting the sisters' suffering for ratings. Animal rights activists protested the use of animal imagery in promotional material. Mental health advocates condemned the framing of their journey as transformation porn, and while many viewers cheered their progress, others mocked them in comment sections, calling them gross, lazy, disgusting. Worse still, the sisters were bombarded with death threats. One anonymous letter sent to Tammy read, "You deserve to die. No one wants you alive." Another fan posted a photo of a funeral wreath with the caption, "Rest in peace, Fatso." They received hate mail daily, yet they kept filming. Why? Because they knew if they stopped, no one would remember them. If they stopped, their story would vanish into the void of forgotten obese women who died alone in bedrooms, surrounded by empty chip bags and half-drunk sodas. Tammy's journey took another tragic turn in 2022 when her beloved dog, Biscuit, passed away. Biscuit was the only creature who never judged her. He slept curled against her side every night. When she cried, he licked her tears. When she laughed, he barked joyfully. His death crushed her. She refused to eat for 3 days. She told therapists, "I think God took him because he knew I couldn't handle any more loss." Amy, too, faced setbacks. After losing over 200 pounds, she developed chronic pain from her previous mobility issues. Her spine had compressed under years of weight. She needed corrective surgery, and it was risky. The cost? Over $80,000. Insurance denied coverage again. She sold her wedding ring. It was gold, a gift from her late husband, who died of cancer in 2014. She wore it every day. Even when she couldn't walk, she touched it to remind herself she was once loved. Now, she pawned it for cash to pay for physical therapy. "I'd rather be in pain than feel worthless," she said quietly. As of 2024, Tammy weighs around 350 pounds. Amy is down to 300. Both have regained some independence. Tammy can now walk short distances without assistance. Amy can hold her son without help. They've moved into separate homes. They've started careers, Tammy as a motivational speaker, Amy as a wellness advocate for people with complex trauma and obesity, but the scars remain. Tammy still wakes up screaming from nightmares of being chased by bullies. She has panic attacks when she sees mirrors. She refuses to take photos with strangers. She says, "I still feel like that little girl who was told she was too much." Amy battles depression daily. She takes medication. She sees a therapist twice a week. She still cries every time she hears "My Heart Will Go" on the song her husband played on repeat before he died. And despite all the progress, the most painful truth remains. They will never be normal. An amount of weight loss can erase the decades of dehumanization. No number on a scale can undo the emotional abuse. No television show can heal the wounds of a childhood spent believing you were unworthy of love. There is no triumphant ending here. No grand finale where they dance on stage holding trophies. There is only quiet perseverance. The true tragedy of 1,000-pound sisters isn't their weight. It's that their story is not unique. Every year, thousands of Americans die from obesity-related causes not because they lack willpower, but because they were abandoned, ignored, traumatized, and told they were less than human before they even understood what humanity meant. Tammy and Amy didn't become obese because they were greedy. They became obese because they were starving for affection, for safety, for dignity, and now they are learning slowly, painfully, tearfully how to be whole. In one final, devastating scene from season 4, Tammy sits alone in her bedroom, holding a photo of herself as a child. She's smiling. She's wearing a yellow dress. Her hair is braided. She looks innocent. Hopeful, she whispers, "I wish I could go back and hug that girl." The camera fades to black, and in that silence, we hear everything. We hear the cries of 1,000 other women like them, women whose stories never made it to TV, women who were never given a chance, women who didn't survive. Tammy and Amy are still fighting. And perhaps that's the most tragic detail of all. Because they shouldn't have had to fight this hard just to be seen. They should have been loved from the start. And they deserved more than a reality show to prove they mattered. They deserved to be cherished before they were broken, before they were labeled, before they were turned into a spectacle. They deserve to be daughters, sisters, mothers, women, not numbers, not hashtags, not 1,000-pound sisters, just people. And in the end, that's the real tragedy. The world waited too long to see them as such. Now they're doing the work of healing alone with cameras rolling and no one really listening. But still, they keep going because sometimes surviving is the bravest thing a person can do. And Tammy and Amy, they are warriors. Not because they lost weight, but because, despite everything, they refuse to give up. And that is the most beautiful, heartbreaking truth of all. 1,000-pound sisters Tammy Slayton finally clears the air on concerning facial bruises in new video. I had a silent battle no one saw coming. It was a quiet Tuesday morning when Tammy Slayton dropped a 17-minute video onto her personal YouTube channel. No flashy thumbnails, no dramatic title cards, no teasers from TLC. Just a simple caption. I need you to hear this. The thumbnail showed Tammy sitting cross-legged on her bedroom floor, wearing an oversized hoodie, her face partially shadowed by the dim lighting. Her eyes, however, were wide open, raw, tired, and unflinchingly honest. Within hours, the video had gone viral. Over 2 million views in 24 hours. Thousands of comments flooded in, some supportive, some skeptical, many heartbroken. But one thing was undeniable. Tammy Slayton, the woman who'd spent years on national television as one half of the wildly popular reality series 1,000-Pound Sisters, had finally broken her silence. And what she had to say wasn't about weight loss. It wasn't about diet plans or surgery milestones. It wasn't even about her relationship with her sister, Amy, who's been her constant companion through every hospital visit, every emotional breakdown, every triumph and failure captured on camera for over 6 seasons. Tammy was talking about the bruises. The ones that had appeared on her cheekbone, her jawline, her forehead visible during recent public appearances, on-screen interviews, and even in candid clips from family gatherings. Fans had whispered. Critics had speculated. Social media had exploded with theories. Was she being abused? Was it a reaction to medication? Did she fall? Was it self-harm? For months, Tammy stayed silent. She smiled through interviews. She laughed off questions with a nervous chuckle. She told reporters, "It's nothing, just a bump." But now, in this video, filmed alone in her room with a single lamp illuminating her face, Tammy didn't smile. She didn't laugh. She took a deep breath, the kind that sounds like it comes from the bottom of your soul, and began. I had a silent battle no one saw coming. The video begins with Tammy holding up a small photo album, the kind you might find tucked under a bed, filled with childhood pictures of birthday parties, beach trips, and school dances. She flips through them slowly, pausing on one where she's maybe 7 years old, grinning with braces, arms wrapped around her younger sister Amy. "I used to love taking pictures," she says softly. "I loved how I looked then. Not because I was thin, I wasn't, but because I felt safe. Because I felt loved. Because I didn't know what fear felt like." She sets the album down gently. I don't know if anyone remembers the first time they ever felt afraid in their own home. "I do," Tammy pauses. Her voice cracks. It was 2015. I was 31. My dad had passed 3 years earlier. Mom was struggling. We were all struggling. And then he came back. She doesn't say his name. Not yet, but everyone who's watched 1,000-Pound Sisters knows who she means. Her ex-partner, the man she lived with for nearly a decade, the father of her child, the man who swore he'd protect her, who held her when she cried after losing another pound, who made her feel like someone worth saving. He didn't start out violent. Tammy continues, her hands trembling slightly as she grips the edge of the blanket beside her. He was sweet, gentle, funny. He'd bring me coffee in bed. He'd sing me songs. He'd tell me I was beautiful, even when I didn't believe him. She looks directly into the camera. But love doesn't always look like kindness. Sometimes it looks like control. Tammy explains how, over time, his behavior shifted. First, it was small things, criticizing her clothing, telling her she couldn't go out without him, accusing her of flirting with cashiers at the grocery store. Then it escalated. He started monitoring her phone, deleting texts, getting angry if she talked to her sister for more than 10 minutes. He said it was because he loved me too much, she whispers. That if I didn't have him, I'd be lost. That I needed him to survive. She describes how he would isolate her from friends, from family, from doctors. He told me my weight was my fault, that I was lazy, that no one else would want me. He said if I ever left, I'd die alone, that I'd never make it on my own. Tammy admits she believed him. For years I did. Then came the physical abuse. It started with shoves. A hand clamped over her mouth when she screamed. A closed fist pressed into her ribs during an argument about money. She says she learned to stay quiet, to nod, to apologize before he even raised his voice. And then, the bruises started showing up. She lifts her hand to her face, tracing the outline of a faded mark on her cheek. This one? That was from him grabbing me by the jaw during an argument about whether I could see my niece's recital. I told him I wanted to go. He said, "You're not going anywhere unless I say so." Then he squeezed her. Tammy's voice breaks again. I didn't tell anyone. Not even Amy. Why? Because I thought it was my fault. Because I thought if I just lost weight, if I just got better, if I just stopped being so heavy, he'd stop. I thought if I became the person he wanted me to be, the violence would end. She pauses, lets the silence hang that I was wrong. She tells of nights spent curled on the bathroom floor, crying silently so the neighbors wouldn't hear. Of hiding bruises with makeup thick layers of concealer, foundation, powder, even tinted moisturizer with SPF. Of lying to doctors during checkups. I fell down the stairs. I bumped into the door. My cat scratched me point one time, she says, voice barely above a whisper. I went to the ER because I couldn't breathe. I thought I had pneumonia. They did x-rays.